There is a room inside the Great Pyramid that no human being has entered in 4,500 years. We know it exists, we have measured it, we have its length, its shape, its position in the stone. And the people who control access to that pyramid have decided that you are not allowed to go inside. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is the official position. The largest hidden space ever found in the most studied monument on Earth, sealed in solid rock, and the answer to the simple question everyone asks, what is inside it, is the one thing they will not give you. So let's actually answer the question the title promised you. What did Egypt hide? The honest version is this. There is a real cover-up here, but it is not the cartoon version where ancient aliens are stacked in a basement. It is quieter and stranger than that. It is a story about a space that should not be there, walls that gave it away, and a decision to leave it sealed that nobody has ever fully explained. By the end of this, you are going to understand exactly what was found, exactly what is being withheld, and exactly why the most powerful scanning technology on the planet was pointed at this pyramid, and then the results were quietly buried under the word void. Stay with me, because the part that actually matters does not come from a tomb. It comes from a wall of subatomic particles falling out of space. If you find buried history as unsettling as I do, subscribe now and turn on the bell, because we go this deep every single week. Start with the thing itself, the Great Pyramid of Giza. You think you know it. Everyone thinks they know it. It is the postcard, the last surviving wonder of the ancient world, the shape on the back of a banknote. It was built for the pharaoh Khufu, whose reign began around 2551 BCE. It stands 138 meters tall, and for nearly 4,000 years, it was the tallest structure human beings had ever made. Nothing taller existed until a cathedral in England in the 14th century. It is made of roughly 2.3 million blocks of stone, 6 million tons. And here is the first detail that should make you uncomfortable. For a structure that massive, built that long ago, it is almost perfectly solid. That word matters. Solid. When scientists finally got the tools to see inside it without drilling a single hole, what shocked them was not how many secret rooms there were. It was how few. The pyramid is dense, packed, homogeneous stone, top to bottom. The builders were obsessive. There is no sloppiness, no wasted space, no accidental gaps. Everything inside was put there on purpose. Think about the discipline that requires. 2.3 million blocks, some weighing as much as a truck, hauled and placed with a precision that leaves almost no air between them, across a structure tall enough to remain the highest thing humans had ever built for nearly 4,000 years. These were not people who left things to chance. There are only a handful of known chambers. The King's Chamber, lined with red granite where a single empty sarcophagus sits. The Queen's Chamber below it, and the Grand Gallery, a staggering corbelled passage 47 meters long and 8 meters tall that climbs up through the heart of the structure toward the burial chamber. That gallery has no equal anywhere in any pyramid ever built. Its walls step inward, layer by layer, in a feat of stonework so refined that engineers still study it. And for centuries, that was the complete map. That was everything, 3 rooms and a corridor, carved into a mountain of rock and nothing else. That map was wrong. For 200 years, scholars treated the inside of the Great Pyramid as a solved problem. They had the chambers. They had the passages. The arguments were about who built it and how, not what was hidden in it, because everyone agreed nothing was hidden in it. The pyramid had been entered, mapped, surveyed, photographed, and measured for generations. Tourists walk through it every day, entering through a tunnel that was hacked into the side in the 9th century by a caliph named Al-Mamun, and his treasure hunters who were absolutely certain there was more inside. They smashed their way through solid stone, following rumors of sealed rooms full of treasure and knowledge. They broke into the descending passages. They reached the known chambers, and they found them empty. No gold, no hidden library, nothing new. The story passed down was that they were so disappointed and the workers so close to revolt that the caliph secretly planted gold in the tunnel just to convince them the dig had been worth it. Whether that is true or not, the lesson stuck. People had broken into this pyramid looking for secrets and come away with nothing. And so the consensus hardened over the centuries that followed. There is nothing left to discover. The Great Pyramid keeps no more secrets. Here's where it gets strange. The problem with the Great Pyramid was never that people stopped looking. It is that you cannot look. You cannot dig into it. It is one of the most protected objects on the planet. You are not permitted to drill, to core, to cut, to remove a single block to peer behind it. Any secret it holds is locked behind millions of tons of stone. You are legally and physically forbidden to touch. For most of human history, that meant the inside of the pyramid was simply unknowable. If a chamber existed that had no door, no passage, no opening of any kind, sealed completely inside the rock when the pyramid was built, there was no way on Earth to ever know it was there. Until someone realized you did not have to go in. You could let the sky do it for you. This is the part that sounds like science fiction and is completely real. The universe is constantly bombarding the Earth with cosmic rays, high-energy particles from deep space. When they hit the upper atmosphere, they shatter and produce a rain of subatomic particles called muons. Muons are heavy cousins of the electron, and they have one bizarre useful property. They pass through solid matter, through your body, through walls, through stone. They are passing through you right now, hundreds of them, every minute. But they do not pass through everything equally. Dense rock absorbs more of them. Empty space absorbs almost none. So, if you place a detector underneath or beside a massive object, and you count the muons coming through from every direction, you can build a density map. More muons from one direction means less stone in the way. Less stone means a gap, a cavity, a room. It is an X-ray of a mountain drawn by particles falling out of space, and it does not require touching the stone at all. And this is not some fringe trick invented to chase pyramid mysteries. Muon imaging is hard physics. It has been used to peer inside active volcanoes to map the magma chambers before they erupt. It has been used to look inside the failed reactors at Fukushima, to find the melted nuclear fuel that no human or robot could safely approach. It is the technology you reach for when you need to see inside something that is too dangerous, too dense, or too sacred to open. And the very first time anyone ever tried it on a pyramid was back in the 1960s, when the physicist Luis Alvarez, a Nobel Prize winner, aimed an early muon detector at the Pyramid of Khafre next door, hoping to find hidden chambers. He found none. That null result became famous. It told the world that these pyramids were probably solid, that there was nothing left to find. For half a century, that was the lesson. The pyramids are full. Stop looking. The technology that would eventually shatter that conclusion was the same technology that first seemed to confirm it. In October 2015, an international mission called Scan Pyramids, operating under the authority of Egypt's own Ministry of Antiquities, decided to point this technology at the Great Pyramid. This was not a treasure hunt. It was a coalition of serious institutions. Japanese physicists from Nagoya University and the research organization KKEC, French physicists from the Atomic Energy Commission, engineers, particle specialists, and Egyptologists working together using not just muons, but infrared thermography to read heat signatures in the stone and 3D reconstruction to model what they found. They placed muon detector plates inside the Queen's chamber, watching for particles arriving from above. They placed others outside, in front of the pyramid's north face. And then they waited. For months. The plates cannot be rushed. You cannot turn up the brightness on cosmic rays. You simply let the sky pour particles through 6 million tons of ancient stone, day and night, counting every single one as it arrives, slowly building a picture no human had ever been able to build, until the statistics become undeniable. In March 2016, the first results came back, and they did not make sense. There was a region deep inside the pyramid that was letting far too many muons through, more than solid stone ever should. The signal traced a long cavity, around 30 meters in length, hidden in a part of the structure where the official map said there was nothing but rock. The lead researcher's first instinct was the right one for any scientist. It is a mistake. It is an error in the equipment, a glitch in the data, a ghost in the statistics. You do not announce that you have found a chamber in the most famous building on Earth because of one strange reading. So, they did the only responsible thing. They checked it, not with themselves, with completely independent teams, using completely different muon detection methods, watching from completely different angles, with no way to accidentally copy each other's mistakes. The team from Keikek in Japan ran their own detectors, a different design entirely, placed in the Queen's chamber. They saw it. The team from the French Atomic Energy Commission ran a third, separate method, gas-based muon telescopes, positioned outside the pyramid, looking up through the north face. They saw it too. 3 independent groups, 3 different technologies, 3 different vantage points, 2 from inside and 1 from outside the monument. And every single one returned the same answer. There is a massive empty space inside the Great Pyramid, directly above the Grand Gallery, that nobody knew existed. Not similar readings, not roughly compatible. The same space in the same place, seen 3 separate ways. Here is how serious that result was. In physics, you measure confidence in something called sigma. Each experiment hit at least 5 sigma significance. 5 sigma means there is less than a 1 in a million chance the result is a fluke. That is not a casual standard. That is the exact level of proof physicists demanded before they would announce the discovery of the Higgs boson, one of the most important findings in the history of science. They held this cavity to the same standard they hold the fundamental particles of the universe. And it passed. On November 2nd, 2017, the team published it in the journal Nature, one of the most rigorous scientific journals on Earth. They gave the cavity a deliberately boring name, the Scan Pyramid's Big Void. And that careful bureaucratic name is the first thread of the cover-up, because the word void is doing an enormous amount of work to make you feel nothing about it. Now let's decode what they actually found, because the details are where this stops being a headline and starts being a problem. The first clue is the size. When the discovery was announced, the Big Void was described as at least 30 meters long. 30 meters. To put that in perspective, that is the length of a commercial airliner buried in the center of a 4,500-year-old monument. Later analysis pushed the estimate higher, with some measurements suggesting closer to 40 meters. Its cross-section, its width and height, closely matches the Grand Gallery directly below it. That is not a crack. That is not a gap between badly fitted stones. The muon excess coming from the void is similar in magnitude to the excess generated by the Grand Gallery itself, which means the 2 spaces are roughly the same volume. The researchers were blunt about what that implies. This is certainly a chamber or a system of chambers. Several hundred cubic meters of deliberate, hollow, sealed space hidden in the one structure on Earth famous for having almost no hidden space at all. And the location is exact in a way that matters. This is not a vague smear in the data. The void sits almost precisely along the midway north-south section of the pyramid, centered over the Grand Gallery, with its core estimated to lie between 40 and 50 meters above the floor of the Queen's chamber. That kind of central, symmetrical placement is not where you find construction accidents. Accidents happen at the edges, in the rubble fill, in the rough zones where the builders cut corners no one would ever see. They do not happen dead center, on the main axis, directly above the most spectacular passage in the entire structure. Whatever this is, it sits at the symbolic heart of the monument, The mainstream interpretation arrived almost immediately, and it was designed to make you stop asking questions. Egyptologists proposed that the Big Void is simply a relieving space, an empty gap the builders left to take structural load off the Grand Gallery's ceiling. Distribute the weight. Stop the roof from collapsing. Case closed. It is engineering, not mystery. But that explanation has a problem. When physicists and an Italian archaeoastronomer named Giulio Magli actually ran the structural analysis, the weight relief theory fell apart. The Big Void sits roughly 10 meters above the Grand Gallery. That is too far above it to provide the structural support the theory requires. A relieving space works by sitting directly over the thing it protects, intercepting the load before it reaches the ceiling below. 10 meters of solid stone in between defeats the entire purpose. The team behind the discovery ran simulations and ruled the weight relief idea out for exactly this reason. And here is the detail that really kills it. The ancient Egyptians knew exactly how to build relieving structures. They did it elsewhere in this very pyramid. Above the king's chamber, they built a precise stack of 5 relieving chambers, one on top of another, capped with a gabled roof, specifically to channel the immense weight of the pyramid around the room below. Over the queen's chamber, they used an inverted V-vault for the same reason. When these builders wanted to relieve weight, they did it deliberately, visibly, and well. And they did it right where the weight was. They did not leave a giant accidental hole floating 10 meters too high in the middle of the structure and hope it worked. This pyramid is, by the muon data itself, almost perfectly homogeneous. The Big Void is the single largest non-homogeneity in the entire bulk of the monument. The one exception to the obsessive perfection of the greatest builders in the ancient world is not an accident. It is a decision. That is the second clue. Whatever the Big Void is, it was put there on purpose by people who did not make mistakes at this scale. And the official story for why it exists does not survive contact with the evidence. And the third clue is the one almost nobody talks about, because it is the one that should make your skin crawl. The Big Void was not the only thing the scans found. Behind the north face of the pyramid, the same project detected a second cavity. They called it the Scan Pyramid's North Face Corridor. This one they could pin down with terrifying precision. A corridor around 9 meters long, roughly 2 meters wide and 2 meters tall, sitting between 17 and 23 meters above the pyramid's ground level, less than 2 meters behind the outer stones, hidden directly behind a strange chevron-shaped arrangement of giant blocks that has been visible on the pyramid's exterior for 4,500 years. People had stared at those chevron stones for centuries and never known what they were hiding. Why would the builders place massive angled stones in a precise V over a particular spot on the outer wall? The answer turned out to be the oldest answer in architecture. You build a structure like that to carry weight away from something underneath it, something you want to protect. A passage, a real, walkable corridor with a vaulted ceiling sealed inside the face of the pyramid that no eye had seen since the day it was built. And in 2023, the team did something they could not do with the Big Void. The corridor was close enough to the surface that they fed a thin endoscope camera through a tiny gap between the stones, a gap barely wide enough for a fiber optic lens. For the first time in 4,500 years, a camera looked inside one of the pyramid's hidden spaces. The footage is haunting. It shows a narrow passage climbing into darkness, a vaulted stone ceiling built from limestone blocks leaned against each other in a gable. Walls placed by hands that died before recorded history began. It was empty of treasure. There was no sarcophagus, no gold, no inscription. But it was undeniably, deliberately there. A finished, intentional, hidden corridor with no door and no purpose anyone can yet explain. And the unsettling implication, raised by the researchers themselves, is that this corridor and the big void deeper inside may once have been connected. A hidden network. A second internal architecture running through the pyramid that the official map never showed. The corridor that was opened may simply be the entrance hall to the chamber that is still sealed. So now hold all three clues together. A chamber-sized void where there should be solid rock, sitting dead center on the pyramid's main axis. A second, sealed corridor hidden behind chevron stones everyone could see but no one understood. And a pyramid otherwise so perfect, so homogeneous, so deliberately built that these gaps cannot be excused as mistakes or sloppiness or chance. Three anomalies in the one building on Earth that should have none. Then modern science found something that changed everything. And the response was not excitement. The response was a wall. Here is the part of the story that earns the word cover-up. Not because of aliens, because of access. The big void has been sitting there, confirmed beyond scientific doubt, since 2017. We know it is real. We know roughly where it is. We know roughly how big it is. And in all the years since, it has been left almost completely unstudied. Stop and feel how strange that is. In any other field, a discovery this large, this confirmed, this important would trigger an immediate race to learn more. Telescopes get rebuilt for less. Particle accelerators costing billions get approved for less. But the single largest hidden space ever found inside the most famous structure on Earth has been allowed to simply sit, untouched, year after year, while the world moved on to the next headline. Why? The official answer is its location. It is buried in the dead center of the pyramid, encased in rock, physically inaccessible. To reach it, with the precise detectors needed to map its true shape, or to send a camera inside the way they did with the corridor, you would have to drill a borehole 5 to 10 meters long through some of the most protected stone on the planet. And that, the Egyptian authorities have decided, is off the table. It goes further than caution. The Scan Pyramids team itself stated that they will only consider trying to enter the big void when all scientists agree on their results. And one man stands in the way of that agreement. Zahi Hawass, the former Minister of Antiquities, and the single most powerful gatekeeper of Egyptian archaeology, publicly objected to the very word void. He argued the researchers misunderstood how the pyramid was built, that they had reached the wrong conclusion because they did not understand its construction. He announced he would write his own paper to refute their conclusions. The man who controls access to the monument declared the discovery essentially overblown, and as long as that disagreement stands, the team has agreed not to look further. Think about what that means. The most important discovery inside the Great Pyramid in over a century, the first major internal structure found since the 1800s, and the rule for investigating it further is that the people who don't want it investigated have to sign off first. The investigation has been handed a veto, and the veto is being used. And the technical obstacle is real too, which is exactly what makes it such a perfect place to hide something. One of the physicists on the project explained it plainly. The big void is so central to the pyramid that studying it closely would be enormously complicated. You would have to drill a hole between 5 and 10 meters long, threading detectors or a camera through solid rock to reach a space you cannot see, without knowing exactly what angle to take. Every meter of that drill is irreversible damage to a monument that has stood for 4,500 years. So the calculation becomes a trap. It is too important to damage, which means it is too important to open, which means it stays a mystery forever, protected by its own significance. The safest place to hide something is inside the one thing no one is allowed to break. It was found, it was measured, it was confirmed by 3 independent teams to the same standard as the Higgs boson. And then it was sealed behind a word, a bureaucracy, and a permanently postponed permit. The largest hidden space in the most famous structure on Earth, and you are not allowed to know what is in it. Not because we can't find out, because someone decided we won't. Now, Does this prove the most extreme version of the story? Does it prove there is a hidden throne room, a lost library, a chamber of forbidden knowledge sealed above the Grand Gallery? No, it does not. And anyone who tells you it does is selling you something. So let's slow down and be honest about what the grounded explanation actually is, because it is still extraordinary. The most likely sober interpretation is that the Big Void is architectural. It may be a second Grand Gallery, an internal construction passage the builders used to haul the colossal granite blocks up into the upper chambers, then sealed over and abandoned when the work was done. That theory actually fits the cross-section, which mirrors the gallery below. If you needed to drag 60-ton granite beams up to roof the king's chamber, a second inclined gallery is exactly the kind of ramp you might build, use, and then wall off forever. Or it may be exactly what the discovering scientists said: a chamber or system of chambers intended from the start, whose purpose was symbolic, religious, or tied to beliefs about the pharaoh's journey through the afterlife that we no longer fully understand. The Egyptians built nothing in these monuments without meaning. Every shaft, every passage, every chamber pointed somewhere, aligned to something, served a function in a cosmology we have only partially recovered. None of those explanations require anything supernatural. No aliens, no lost supercivilization. Just human beings doing something deliberate whose reasons died with them. But sit with that for a second, because even the boring version is staggering. It means that the most studied building in human history, the one we were absolutely certain we had completely mapped, was hiding a chamber the size of an airplane this entire time. And we only found it 8 years ago, by accident, using particles from outer space. It means the people who built this thing, with copper tools and ramps and ropes and human muscle, executed a hidden internal architecture so precise that it stayed invisible for 4,500 years and survived every treasure hunter, every survey, every expedition, every confident scholar who declared the pyramid fully known. It means our map of the ancient world is not finished. It means there are spaces inside the things we think we understand best that we have never seen and are not allowed to see. The grounded explanation does not make the mystery smaller. It just changes who is hiding the answer. It is not the Egyptians of Khufu's time anymore. It is the institutions of our own. And if that's true, our history really is missing a chapter. Because here is the question that none of the careful, cautious, official language has ever answered. If the Big Void is just empty construction space, just a meaningless gap, then why is it forbidden to look inside it? We sent a camera into the North Corridor the moment we had the chance. We celebrated it. The footage went around the world. But the Big Void, the larger one, the one the size of a chamber, the one sitting dead center in the most powerful symbol the ancient world ever produced, that one stays sealed, study postponed, permits pending. The discovery of the century left deliberately unopened. We have the technology, we have the precise location, we have detectors fine enough to map it, and cameras small enough to enter it. The only thing we do not have is permission. You do not lock a door this hard over an empty room. And you do not point the most advanced imaging technology on Earth at a 4,500-year-old monument. Find the single largest hidden space inside it. Confirm it 3 separate ways to the standard of a fundamental particle. And then decide the responsible thing to do is nothing. So that is the cover-up Egypt hid, and the walls that revealed it. Not a wall of hieroglyphs, a wall of muons falling out of the sky for months, drawing a picture of a space that was never supposed to be found. The pyramid gave up its secret. The people who guard it decided to put that secret back. The Big Void is still there tonight, sealed in the center of Khufu's pyramid, exactly as it has been for 4,500 years. Several hundred cubic meters of darkness that no human eye has ever seen, waiting behind a permit that may never be signed. If this is the kind of buried history that keeps you up at night, the next investigation on screen right now goes even deeper into what they don't want measured. Watch it before it gets quietly taken down, too.